Hello, welcome to Frameline 45. I'm Peter Stein. I'm senior programmer for the festival, and I'm very, very happy that you've joined us for our Q&A with the creative team behind the marvelous new drama Firebird, which is receiving its North American premiere with us here at Frameline. And so let me bring on our distinguished group. I'm so happy to welcome from very far afield from San Francisco right now. First of all, writer-director Peter Rebane. Peter, come on into the studio here. It's great to see you joining us from Estonia. Also, we have actor and co-writer Tom Pryor, and who played, of course, Sergei. And we have the actor who played Roman. Welcome, Oleg Zagorodny. It's great to have all of you here with us in our little broadcast studio. Welcome and congratulations, really, to all of you on marvelous performances and a really thoughtful and very moving period drama set in a very unusual time and place, at least for LGBT stories. And I wanted to start with you, Peter Rebane. This is based on a true story, the memoir of Sergei Fetisov, and I want to understand how you got to know this story and what prompted you to dramatize it in the film.
Well, first, hi and welcome to everybody. And it's really an honor and a humbling and grateful occasion to be having our North American premiere at Frameline, which is a festival that I've known and followed for many years. This story actually found me, and that's kind of the most amazing bit about it, that a friend who founded the Dark Nights Film Festival in Tallinn, she was at Berlinale, and a Russian journalist approached her with the manuscript of the autobiography. So she brought it to me, and that's almost like 10 years ago. And I read it in my broken Russian over a weekend, literally cried a bit, and just felt that I have to turn this into a feature film. So after a long journey, here we are.
Sergei Fetisov was alive when you read the memoir, and did you have to approach him directly and just have any kind of discussions with him about what it would mean to turn his book into a film?
Well, first, of course, we had to obtain the life rights and kind of sign an agreement. But then we had the amazing opportunity together with Tom to travel to Moscow and to interview him for days. So we had lunches, dinners, walks in the metro and city, and really kind of got to know him as a person, and got the chance to ask so many questions about how did they spend time together, what did they love, what did they do, like what was their favorite opera, like a lot of richness of life and details, which we then were able to use in the script and in the film.
Tom, I want to bring you in here because in a rather unusual situation. First of all, welcome. It's great to have you here. Congratulations on your performance. But you are not just the lead actor in this film. You joined Peter early on in the process as a co-writer. Tell us first how that came to be, and then I want to hear how it was to meet the man who you were going to play as a young man.
Firstly, thank you so much for having us and sharing Sergei's story with the world. That's the real honor with this project, is that it is based on a true story. And so the project found me back in 2014, actually, when Peter and I met. I was doing some work in LA at the time, and a producer said that, I've just come across this early draft of a script, and I think you'd be really right to play the main character in the script. And so then she introduced me to Peter, and then we had a discussion about the narrative. And I've always loved military genre-based films, and also I was really fascinated by this kind of a relationship in a military-based setting. And then Peter and I decided that we would work together and we would do a teaser for the film. to help raise the rest of the financing. And then I started making some suggestions on how the script could be improved a little bit, which was received very graciously. And that kind of ended up me basically giving more and more feedback, and kind of really ended up with Peter and I writing together. And then sort of like what I did and what I brought really to the project was this sense of like importance about the sociological context and the political context of the time. And so that's why Peter and I decided to go and meet the real Sergei, and basically really refine that level of development of the story. And then actually to meet him was phenomenal. He had such heart, such boldness. I mean, when we met him, he was 62, 61, 62, and he was just so full of life, and just recounted like this intensity, this love between him and Roman in such a way which kind of bonded us and connected us, like in a kind of way that's sort of quite hard to describe, but was just like a real honor to meet the person who you will invariably then play in the film.
Before I turn to Oleg, I want to understand from you and Peter as the writers, how faithful did you feel you needed to be to Sergei's actual story versus the needs of drama, telling a compressed story in less than 2 hours, and so forth? Because you got this extraordinary setting and obviously a very moving memoir, but you also have to tell it in your own medium, to some degree fictionalized. So I'm wondering how you wrestled with that, and were you concerned about departures that you were going to take from the actual sort of the biography itself?
I think we stayed very true, and that was from the beginning the kind of intention and the goal. And while writing, we got a lot of like different feedback from people, like, oh, you should make it more of a thriller and like more of a KGB story and so on. And we actually kind of deviated away and away and away from the true story, and we just felt, okay, this is not the film that we're making. So we went back and we actually like reread the original story, and literally some of the scenes, some like the letter from Roman at the end to Sergei has been translated by 3 different people to make sure that every word is as in the original. So I think we took really strong care to stay true to the original intention, the original feeling, the original love story. But then we made some important changes as well, and one of them was definitely the character of Luisa, which in the original was quite different than in our version.
You want to just say a little bit more about the difference, the changes that you made in the Luisa figure?
I think that like our responsibility to both audiences of this film was really important. In the original story, Louisa was played in a very portrayed in a very unsympathetic way, and actually, the tragedy really of Louisa's character could be argued to be the greatest of all within the story. And so we really felt it was our responsibility to kind of basically take her character and make her kind of much more sympathetic, much more likable, much more lovable, in her own vulnerability, in simply following her heart like the boys do. Like, this is a story which is about people daring to follow love, daring to follow their hearts in a repressive society, or a society way in which you're in danger. And the reality is there was not the language in place to be able to scale this kind of a relationship with these kind of complexities. And again, that was really like our duty as writers to Sergei, was to take all the very true feelings and to kind of bed it into a context which was also very enjoyable to watch. Because when I read the original story, I was like, how is this possible? It seemed so idyllic, so beautiful, so so full of love. But if we presented the book in the way which it's read, everybody would have said it's not true. They simply would have said it's not possible, it's not true. And so when we went to meet Sergei, one of the best parts about our research was really trying to differentiate where sort of like reality ended and sort of like the kind of the fiction began. Because it's told in this sort of very nostalgic, beautiful way. So we wanted to really kind of like bring in the drama, the ups and the downs, and you know, also, I mean, my part as well, like, was demanding that we did make a little element of a thriller, that we do have like this action sequence in the plane when he almost crashes, when Roman almost crashes. And it was Sergei who told us about that situation when we met him again and said that this was real. And so, you know, we wanted to put that in too.
Well, Oleg, thank you for being patient while we talk to your colleagues. Tell us a little bit. First of all, you're in Ukraine. You're a Ukrainian actor, normally performing in, I imagine, in Ukrainian and perhaps Russian. So, what struck you? What did you think of this script? First of all, in English, and secondly, set in a time period of a gay love story in the Soviet military. What did you think of the story when you first heard about it?
When I first read all the script, after my casting in Moscow with Tom, when I first met Peter, I read the script with translator because my English was now it's not so good, but it was like, I don't know English. So, and I read with translator, and when I finish, I'm gonna cry because I understand that it's really about love and about people want to be their self, but they can't because of, you know, this Soviet Union system, and people around them, they don't understand this kind of love, or, you know. And for me at first, I understand that if I will do it, I will do it about love, about people who care about each other. And like I hear, you know, love is love. So yeah, this story at first touched my heart, and I understand that it's gonna be very very strong love story.
Yes, well, that's certainly what it turned out to be. For you, well, you and Peter grew up in what we now call the former Soviet Union. Did the story, this romantic story that Tom just described as very ideal, did it seem possible to you? That's what strikes me looking back on the film, to say, wow, in the early 1980s, here were two men in the military trying to live a secret life. I'll start with Oleg, and maybe Peter, you can answer too. How unusual do you think this story is, and how dangerous do you feel it was for those characters to try to live as themselves?
I think till today it's really dangerous. The same in Ukraine. Now it's situation start to be easier, you know, and that way, but it's still dangerous. And we when we have this preparation period with the guys, we learned some and found some material about Grozny, Chechnya, and about what happened to people like Roman and Sergei till today. You know, it's like 20 years ago. It still happened today, and it's so closer to us than we think. So we think about it, and I think it's all what I want to say about it.
Yeah, Peter, I know you've recently had an experience just with this very film in Moscow that shows in some ways how little we've come since the days that you depict in Firebird.
Yeah, I was very saddened. I mean, first we were amazingly excited when the Moscow International Film Festival accepted us, and we were even a bit surprised knowing, the current politics in Russia. But it was saddening that we actually, after the first screening, had some right-wing extremists with posters "Stop LGBT" propaganda in front of the cinema, and actually writing a letter to the state prosecutor's office to ban the screening. And actually, the festival, well, they did a very interesting move. They didn't terminate the screening, but they stopped all the ticket sales and literally played the film to an almost empty auditorium. But looking back, I mean, I am a gay man who grew up during the Soviet time here in Estonia and during the Soviet occupation, and the story for me is so personal because my summer house of our family was near the same Air Force base, so I remember vividly, like a small child riding a bicycle and this MiG fighter jets flying overhead. So you literally fall off your bicycle because they were like 50 plus meters above the ground. Just this like thunderous noise. And also like growing up and having to hide all of your feelings and not being able to really date somebody or express how you feel because everybody around you judges you and kind of considers it pretty much an illness. I mean, at the time, I think people thought that you're literally disabled or ill, not to speak of the 5-year prison sentence. So yeah, I think that's also one of the reasons why the original story so strongly resonated when I read it for the first time.
It's very moving to know that you kind of came out of this period of repression and found someone in Sergei Fetisov who could let you imagine, in a way, a different set of hopes. It's disturbing, though, what happened in Moscow. We have colleagues at the Side by Side Festival, which is a very brave LGBTQ festival in Moscow and St. Petersburg, which would, when I think of it, be kind of what I would have presumed to be the setting for your being able to show Firebird in Russia. But the fact that you were invited to Moscow is amazing by the Moscow International Film Festival, but they're kind of suppressing the film. I know there was another LGBTQ short film in the festival that was simply removed it was yanked from the program, and they didn't even tell the filmmakers that they had done that until it just disappeared from the program. Did you, in addition to playing for an empty house, did you get any further response, or are you concerned about the reception to the film in places where there is still really a lot of anti-LGBT and homophobic sentiment?
Well, I'm also really still very grateful that the festival staff risked to invite us into the program at all, which I think was not probably an easy decision. And I can understand that with that kind of pressure, they probably didn't have much other choice than to, let's say, kill the screening. I guess they didn't want to cancel it because that would cause a bit of a scandal internationally. So the easiest way was to say that, no, sorry, it's sold out and no more tickets available. But yeah, it's a sobering occasion. It really made me realize how tough it is to live authentic life in some countries around the world still, and I'm sure there are a lot of countries. Reading recently about this beautiful young soul in Iran who was beheaded by his own brother, which just makes you sick. Like, what's going on? Like, how could you even imagine doing it to one of your family members? It's I think still a long way to go, and that's probably one of the reasons why we need to tell the stories, and also why we need, I think, to tell the stories from these countries which are currently in this repressive ideological systems.
Yeah, well said. So despite your playing to a fairly empty house in Moscow, I'm really, really excited that in a turn of events, because of the downturn in COVID cases here in the States, and specifically in the Bay Area, we have the chance to actually show your film in a proper theater in the old-fashioned way at the Castro Theater on June 27th. And I'm especially excited that, knock on wood, it looks like all three of you will actually be in San Francisco for the screening, which is just incredibly exciting. Some of you may know San Francisco, maybe some of you it's your first time. What will it be like? I'll start with you, Tom. What will it be like to actually see this film with an audience?
Well, it will be the first time, which is kind of mad. Yeah, I mean, to actually be able to experience, that was always the joy, the reason of making the film and actually going to do a film festival circuit, was to actually really engage with the people that we made the film for. So it's going to be a real honor to sort of see what sharing comes out of it, how it kind of makes people feel, and also, I mean, like, my kind of wish really with the film is that it kind of really opens people's hearts and allows them and encourages them to feel and follow their hearts.
And Oleg, have you ever been to San Francisco? And are you looking forward to making it here for your onstage appearance?
It's gonna be my first time in San Francisco, and yeah, I'm happy about it.
Well, we are too, and let's just hope that the travel gods and the COVID demons stay with us on our side, and that we will all see each other again in San Francisco on June 27th. Peter, any final words to our audience as we wrap up our thoughts here?
I think most of all, thank you for taking the time to watch the story, and if you resonate with the story, share it with your friends. That's I think what Sergei would have wished the most, that his and Roman's story reaches as many hearts as possible.
Well put. Be well, all three of you, and we look forward to actually seeing you in person in San Francisco on June 27th. Thanks so much for this conversation. Really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.